Hi, I'm Lucia Tiffany, and I'm just inviting you into my kitchen to cook with me. Today I am making pie crust because I want to make some quiche. And so this is an easy pie crust. It's an oil base, so it does not require any shortening or saturated fat. And it is not a low-calorie crust, so it's something that I use for kind of special occasions. I don't use it all the time because it does have a fair amount of oil in it. But it does make a nice flaky crust, which is great when you want to do something special for either pie or something savory like I'm doing today, which is quiche. And so I'm going to start with my flour. I need 2 cups of flour. Now I'm going to be using some whole spelt flour. So here's 1 cup, and you can make it half and half, like a whole grain flour and half unbleached white flour if you'd prefer a little bit lighter crust. My family doesn't mind a completely whole grain crust, so I'm going to use spelt. Spelt agrees with me a little bit better than whole wheat. If I use whole wheat, I'll always make sure it's organic. Oh, just a second. I'm going to grab my fork. All right, so we've got the flour, and then we're going to add a teaspoon of salt. I like to use a high mineral salt like Celtic salt. Himalayan is good too if you have the really fine grind. I don't like the coarse grind Himalayan in the crust because I need the salt to really mix in with everything else. So I just mix the salt and the flour together, and then we're going to add the oil and the water. And it takes a half a cup of oil and a half a cup of water. So I just use like a 2-cup measuring cup. I'm going to use a light olive oil because it doesn't have a strong flavor. And with the quiche, you could use like extra virgin. It would be okay. The flavor would be fine with it. But I think this time I'm just going to go with the light. And I want a half a cup of oil. This is the light olive oil. And then I need a half a cup of very cold water. I'm going to go over to the sink and get that. All right, so my half a cup of cold water, whisk the two together. All right, you can see that it turns kind of white and gets thick. This is the secret to a flaky oil crust. You know, most people make crust with some kind of solid shortening, but that adds a lot of saturated fat to your diet, so it's healthier to use a liquid oil. But this will help to give the same effect in your crust, to give it the flakiness that you want. So now I'm going to add this. I don't know about you, but I'm a spatula person. I'm going to add this all at once to my flour salt mixture. And then I'll use the fork just to mix it lightly. And I use the spatula to get all of this oil water emulsion out of here. Then use the fork to just get all the flour moistened. Okay, I don't really want to mix it too vigorously. And that also helps to keep your pie crust flaky. You can use a whole wheat pastry flour, which is more of a low gluten flour in this crust as well. Low gluten flours help to make it flakier. All right, there we go. Looks like it's a little bit damp, but I think the whole grain flour will kind of soak that up very shortly. I'm going to take my pie dish. And this is enough for 2 9-inch crust. So I'm going to just take half of it and put in my pie dish. And then I have this little roller, which I just love. It actually broke, and I used to have another end on it, but this is the end that I always use. And I like using this to roll it out in the pan. If I don't have one of these, what I also do sometimes is just get a piece of saran wrap, a large piece of saran wrap or plastic wrap, or even a large freezer bag that's cut in half, and put that on top of the dough, and then just use my fingers to spread it out. This helps me get it rolled right up the edge. try to keep it from being too thick right here in the corners and at the edge of the flat bottom. And after I have it all up, we're just going to make it kind of pretty. So I just use my fingers to make a little edging. Just go all the way around. See, I just take my fingers and I do this with the crust. There we go. I just kind of check. I want to make sure it's pretty even in terms of thickness everywhere. I've got some places it's a little too thick. I'll just kind of pull it back down into the center. And our crust is now ready for its filling. So whatever kind of filling you're going to put into it, it's ready for that. Or if you need a pre-baked crust for something, sorry, my glasses keep sliding down my nose. If you need a pre-baked crust for something, you can put this in the oven. I would go ahead and prick it with a fork to keep it from bubbling too much. And put it in the oven for 12 minutes or so at about 350. You just want it to set up nicely and just barely start to turn a little bit golden. You want to be careful not to burn it if you're doing the crust all by itself for maybe some kind of filling that doesn't need additional cooking. So there we go. Here is our whole spelt, whole grain crust. So here's the quiche filling that we have already. Here is my unbaked pie crust. I made a spelt whole grain pie crust here. I'm going to just give this a little bit of a stir and then just pour it carefully into the crust. The recipe said a 9-inch crust, which 9-inch pie crust, which is exactly what I have here. And it looks to me like it's pretty generous. And that's about all this crust is going to hold. But I've got some ideas of what I want to do with the rest of this. So we're going to have some fun with what's left over here. I'm going to go ahead and put the pie into my oven at 350. It's already preheated, so I'm going to stick it in there. Not sure if it'll run over or not, so I want to make sure and put some protection in the oven. So now we're going to bake it at 350 degrees for 50 minutes. Once you take it out of the oven, you want to let it sit to firm up just a little bit before you cut it. But it's also good rewarmed, and you can even eat it cold. Like you can take this on a picnic and enjoy it. So I'm going to show you something else I'm going to do with my leftover filling right now. I think I'm going to make some little mini quiches. Let me pull out my muffin pans. But I think I'm going to use some of these mini pans. And I've got some leftover pie crust. So I'm going to use some of this leftover pie crust to line the pans. And then whatever, if I have more filling than I have crust, we'll just make some crustless mini quiches. Okay, that's kind of the end of my crust. Oops. So the rest of these I'm just going to make without crust. So let me go ahead and form these crust. Man, I'm thinking I don't even need that much. But you know, you could do these in regular size muffin tins also. But I think these will be cute. Just something to make them a little bit prettier. I'm ready for some filling. I'm just going to take a little scoop. I love using scoops. They help me to get things uniform, all the same size. Anyway, so I'll go ahead and finish the rest, and then I'm just going to use the scoop to fill up the other little muffin tins. I think I'll probably spray them with just a little bit of oil or wipe them out with a little bit of oil so that this quiche mixture doesn't stick in them. Usually it comes out okay. This has a non-stick finish, but I'm not sure. So I'm gonna oil them just a little bit. And so then I'm gonna put them in the oven and just bake them till they're golden and have firmed up. And then I'll show them to you when they're all done. So here we are with the finished product. As you can see, the crust is well cooked. It's got a nice golden top to it. And then I'm going to let it chill before I try to cut it. It's still pretty soft, and so it needs to set up before it serves nicely. It can even be chilled and then rewarmed the next day. The little mini quiches turned out pretty good too. Let me show those to you. Here we go. See the ones with the crust and then the ones without the crust. And I'm going to let these cool a bit in the pan, especially the crustless ones, so that they come out clean. I think I can take the crusted ones out probably in a few minutes because they just popped them out of the oven. But the ones without the crust, I'm going to let them sit just a little bit because I'm afraid they might fall apart a little bit if I try to take them out too early. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed that and have fun. If you make them, send me a picture. Post the picture for me. Let me know how you liked them. All right, we'll see you later.